Hare Krishna. So as of now, only 40 people have joined with us now. So Madhav Prabhu, with your permission, shall I go ahead? Shall I start the session? Hare Krishna, Madhav Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Guru.
Yes. Okay, Prabhu. We will begin the session with the invocation prayers. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Vijanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pisharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatati Sudarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Krishe Namaha Namo Brahmana Devaya Go Brahmanitaya Navititai Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. We welcome all the participants for the today's session, and I would like to introduce the team of Dirty to Soil. His Grace Madhav Prabhu. He is our ISKCON Daivavarnashram Ministry Minister, Deputy Minister, and I would like to introduce another devotee. His name is His Grace Ram Lakshman Das. He is a chairman for our ISKCON Daivavarnashram Ministry, and His Grace Ras Mandal Das. He is our vice chairman for ISKCON Daivavarnashram Ministry India. And I would like to introduce the main speakers of this session are His Grace Madhav Prabhu and His Grace Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu and Dr. Sri Kala. So they are the three main speakers who are going to enlighten us on the topic of dirt to soil. I would like to share few few details about Madhav Prabhu, what he is like. Madhav Prabhu, he is holding postgraduate degree in both botany and philosophy. And during his postgraduate studies, he came in contact with Krishna consciousness movement. And after working for a few years, he joined as a full-time monk in 1989 to 1989 or 90. Yeah. Since then, he traveled widely, and in 2004, upon his guru's instruction, he relocated to a remote area called Gokuldam in the Belgaum district of Karnataka, India. So to practice more intensively the principles enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita. His major concerns apart from spiritual studies is on regenerative agriculture and environmental preservation by combining both traditional and modern techniques. In his lectures, he advocates a holistic solution to improve the consciousness at the human level and also preserve the nature for a wholesome and healthy life. And I would like to say a few words about the another two speakers of Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu and Dr. Sri Kala Mataji. They both are like Bachelor of Veterinary Sciences and Animal Husbandry, and with postgraduate certificate in Veterinary Homeopathy. Both are graduated from College of Veterinary Animal Sciences, Kerala. So they both were worked as a veterinary officers in the dairy cooperative sector in Kerala from 1992 to 2010. resigned. They both are resigned from as a veterinary officers and learned holistic management of land and cows from their own land from 2011, after realizing that the conventional management of animals did not facilitate for cows and other livestock to live their full lifespan. So from 2013, they are serving as a holistic veterinarians in Gokuldham Vedic Eco Project, and they are serving as a holistic veterinarian for ISKCON farm projects and the other farm projects as well, like Agarwal Organic Farm in Jaipur. And like they are into like more focused on about the integrating of cows into farming practices and regenerating the soil for organic farming by proper utilization of dung and urine, and also treatment of various diseases. Cows with homeopathy and inorganic medication can affect the whole organic principles of farming. So they can actually give a wonderful solutions for that. Yeah, so these are the brief introduction for of our speakers. Like I would like to say a few lines about the why we are conducting this dirt to soil course. As a mission, we wanted to do awareness programs, many awareness programs, and many more educative programs about holistic cow care and land management. Like, you know, all our lives depend on soil. So this knowledge is like so ingrained in me, especially into me personally, now that it's hard for me to believe how many soil destroying practices we are actually following. So we didn't know any better. Like in our present, present universities taught us all about current industrial production models, which is a model based on reductionist science, not on how natural ecosystem functions. So if you want healthy functioning ecosystem on our farm, we must provide a home and habitat for not only farm animals, but also for pollinators, predators, insects, earthworms, and all of the microbiology that drive our all ecosystems. So now we will play an introduction video of our ISKCON founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and followed by a small video, keynote address given by His Holiness Bhaktiraghav Swami Maharaj for this online course. Hare Krishna. Hope everyone can able to hear. Is it audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. We would like to share a small biography
Request
about
everyone to mute.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was born in 1896 in Kolkata, India. He first met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, in Calcutta in 1922. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a prominent devotional scholar and the founder of 64 branches of Gaudiya Mathas, Vedic institutes, liked this educated young man and convinced him to dedicate his life to teaching Vedic knowledge in the Western world. Srila Prabhupada became his student, and 11 years later, 1933, at Allahabad, he became his formally initiated disciple. After their first meeting in 1922, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur requested Srila Prabhupada to broadcast Vedic knowledge through the English language. In the years that followed, Srila Prabhupada wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and in 1944, without assistance, started an English fortnightly magazine. Recognizing Srila Prabhupada's philosophical learning and devotion, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Society honored him in 1947 with the title Bhaktivedanta, meaning that the ultimate conclusion of knowledge and bhakti, devotion to Krishna. In 1950, at the age of 54, Srila Prabhupada retired from married life, and 4 years later, he adopted the Vanaprastha, in order to devote more time to his studies and writing. Srila Prabhupada traveled to the holy city of Vrindavan, where he lived in very humble circumstances in the historic medieval temple of Sri Sri Radha Damodar. There he engaged for several years in deep study and writing. He accepted the renounced order of life sannyasa in 1959. At Radha Damodar, Srila Prabhupada began work on his life's masterpiece, a multi-volume translation and commentary on the 18,000 verse Srimad Bhagavatam. He also wrote Easy Journey to Other Planets. After publishing 3 volumes of Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada came to the United States in 1965 to fulfill the mission of his spiritual master. Since at the time, His Divine Grace has written over 60 volumes of authoritative translations, commentaries, and summary studies of the philosophical and religious classics of India. In 1965, when he first arrived by freighter in New York City, Srila Prabhupada was practically penniless, possessing the equivalent of about $5. It was after almost a year of great difficulty that he established the International Society of for Krishna Consciousness in July of 1966. Under his careful guidance, the society grew with a decade to a worldwide confederation of almost 100 ashramas, schools, temples, institutes, and farm communities. In 1968, Srila Prabhupada created New Vrindavan, an experimental Vedic community in the hills of West Virginia. Inspired by the success of New Vrindavan, now a thriving farm community of more than 5,000 acres, his students have since founded several similar communities in the United States and abroad. In 1972, His Divine Grace introduced the Vedic system of primary and secondary education in the West by founding the Gurukula School in Dallas, Texas. The school began with 3 children in 1972, and by the beginning of 1975, the enrollment had grown to 150. Srila Prabhupada's most significant contribution, however, is his books. His writings have been translated into 85 languages. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, established in 1972 exclusively to publish the works of His Divine Grace, has thus become the world's largest publisher of books in the field of Indian religion and philosophy. Its latest project is the publishing of Srila Prabhupada's most recent work, a 17-volume translation and commentary completed by Srila Prabhupada in only 18 months on the Bengali religious classic Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In spite of his advanced age, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 12 times on lecture tours that have taken him to 6 continents. In spite of such a vigorous schedule, Srila Prabhupada continued to write prolifically. His writings constitute a veritable library of Vedic philosophy, religion, literature, and culture. On November 14, 1977, at 7:25 p.m., Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada entered into Samadhi and left the material world in Vrindavan, India, at the age of 81. Srila Prabhupada's 50% unfulfilled desire still remains. So, this IDVM India, ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry, taken up Srila Prabhupada's 50% unfulfilled desire to establish farm communities, simple living, and high thinking. Srila Prabhupada says, protecting cows is a most important component of protecting the earth. In Sanskrit, Goraksha means cow protection, but it can also mean protection of the earth. Because the word Go means both cow and earth. The Srimad Bhagavatam presents several accounts in which Mother Earth, Bhumi, Devi, assumes the form of a cow. So the cow is a representative of Mother Earth, and when the cow and the bull are mistreated, Mother Earth withdraws her bounty. Under the Varnashram system, a small ox-powered farms can benefit human society, benefit animals, and benefit the earth. A simple life in the country working with animals provides a natural, wholesome environment for human society. And another point in the lecture of Srila Prabhupada says, it may be an ideal village when the residents will have plain thinking, plain living. For plain living, we must have sufficient land for raising crops and pasturing grounds for the cows. If there is sufficient grains and production of milk, then the world economic problem is solved. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. I came to know that the ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry here in India will be presenting a complete online course on the topic of holistic management. And they have given as title, A Common Sense Approach to Land and Cows, Dirt to Soil. Actually, this is a very critical theme, very essential theme that we find that is actually the basis in our Vedic culture. How both land and cows are meant to be working together. The most devastating situation that we have created in the world beginning in the early part of the 20th century was to actually segregate or separate land and cows. When we look at various instructions given by our acharyas, beginning with grandfather Bhishmadev, in the Mahabharata, he nicely explains how the Lord has given to humanity three gifts of nature, beginning with cow, then land, and thirdly, cultivation of knowledge. Because we are not following this simple formula, which is explained as well in the Bhagavad Gita, therefore the whole global situation has become completely disarranged. And therefore we have various global crises. Our Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian-based culture where land and cows are meant to be intimately connected with every individual. Agrarian culture means we depend on the natural products in a natural way coming from the land. So I'm very pleased that IDVM India is taking this initiative. There's a tremendous need to educate the general mass of people and also to educate our own devotees. We have a dual responsibility as devotees. Not only we are responsible to give spiritual transcendental knowledge, but our Vedic literatures give us all the material knowledge needed to live a simple, happy, prosperous life. Therefore, it is very much part of our duty and responsibility as devotees to balance these two aspects of dharma. So I very much wish all the devotees involved in this holistic management course all success, and we hope that more devotees will study seriously this subject matter so that the situation in the world can be improved, and that we can actually give proper care and protection to Mother Earth, and in this way we can serve the Lord in a better way. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. We thank His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Swami Maharaj for giving us a short keynote address for this event. Yeah. Now, last but not least, I would like to introduce myself. That I myself, Vasudhama Das. I'm serving in ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry as a National Director for HRD. And also I'm practicing holistic farming. I have my own farm about near Warangal, Telangana, near Warangal. And in about like I've got around 58 acres of land. Of course, maybe another 10 acres we bought recently, and we are practicing this holistic farming practices in that land. And we do like I'm connected with the IDVM India with other team members, and we've been doing to organize these sessions and many more activities. So now I would like to invite our main speaker for today's session, His Grace Madhav Prabhu, to take up the. Before that, I would like to share the topics of the session. So this is the course schedule. So as like everyone is aware, like from 1st May to 16th May is our sessions from Saturdays and Sundays at 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So today is the 1st May. Today is a day one course. That is the today's title is Understanding the Common Sense Approach to Managing Landscape with Livestock. Okay. So I would like to request Madhav Prabhu to speak on the today's topic. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Good evening to everyone who have joined this course. In our presentation today, we would like to deal primarily with a slightly different approach to the whole system of managing our land and the landscape. I will primarily be talking about the approach that is normally there today and how it is flawed, and what is it that we should do, or how we can actually expand it and see a much better way of managing our landscape and our lives also, because nothing is disconnected in today's world. I have some slides which also will be shown. Maybe you can start the slides. We are starting with we're calling it the common sense approach to restoring landscape because as most complex things, land is also a very complex uh, entity, and not just land, basically the whole nature. Everything in nature is complex. Human beings are complicated, on what we produce is very complicated, but uh, it is not as complex as nature is. And the problem is that it is our human nature, that despite seeing the complexity of our nature or the nature around us, we tend to not appreciate or not take our decisions keeping in mind the complexity of material nature. Rather, we want to reduce it. Let's see the next slide. We have the whole nature. We have tried to divide nature into different parts. But no matter how many parts you divide nature into, the sum total of the parts can never become the whole. The whole is always greater than the sum total of its parts. And understanding that we have to deal with the whole and not the parts. Parts in themselves are very important. Parts are themselves very important, but when we are taking a decision, we have to take the decision as a whole. Our features are connected to actually understanding the whole, because the whole is what actually matters. We will go through some examples to make you understand, and we will take the soil as an example for that. Okay, can you see the next slide? Generally, what we do is that, can we see the next slide also? Yes. The reductionistic, we normally take, because of the approach that is there of Robert Bacon, way back in the I think the 17th or the 17th century, that they thought that the world could be viewed as a machine with its various parts. And so we can isolate each of those parts and try to study them and manage them in their parts. But as we saw before, the whole is always greater than the sum total of its parts. So as a result of this reductionistic approach to the whole world as a whole, we started dealing with the parts and thinking that if we study it, but when you separate the whole from the part does not behave in the same manner as it does when it is a part of the whole. Like, for example, if you take away the parts of your spectacles and try to see how this thing works, you may see something's happening, but you will not see it functioning as one if you take it all apart. Similarly, because each one supports the other. So when we take everything apart in parts, in a reductionistic approach and try to study them in situ, in vivo, then what happens is that you get a very reductionistic view of the world. In the real world, in the real matter, life, society, vitality, that means all the biotic and abiotic factors, all of them work together and influence each other. And they cannot be understood in separate from one another. If you don't take the temperature into control, the rainfall, the seasonal changes, the amount of sunshine that is available, the kind of soil that is there, the altitude, everything together, you cannot actually understand how to deal with your land. So in this reductionistic approach, there has been always an attitude that nutrition, the nutrition of the plant, soil and plant nutrition is separately to be dealt with, and genetics is to be separately dealt with, and the fertilization is a different thing altogether. Even though there have been some attempts to kind of do some interdisciplinary study, but it has never come up to produce any desired result. So, can we see the slide before this? In the slide before this, the one before, not after. Yeah. So, what happens when we take a few pieces together and try to work them out? We get some inconsistent or sporadic results from them. For example, if we start only dealing with water and maybe a few other factors of nutrition and see how it works, we see that for initial some time we get some good sporadic, or we get some results which are sometimes good, sometimes bad, because we've not approached the whole as together. So therefore, when we actually approach the land and the landscape, and we have to approach it together, otherwise we will always get these kind of sporadic or inconsistent results. And so when these happen, then we start doing further manipulation. We start looking for the different parts and see how which part is not working well, and try to fix that there. When we fix that there, some other part which is connected with, we're not able to understand that. By the time we get to that problem, we lose out on the other. So can we go to the next slide on human tendency? The next one, yeah. So it is normally the human tendency to take decisions. We all have a tendency to take decisions, either one, to solve a problem. Everything that we do is basically we take a decision. Most times we take a decision, the government takes a decision, the police takes a decision, we as family members take a decision. Why? Either we want to solve a problem, or we want to take care of a need, or we want to take care of a want. But when we do take decisions like that, we do not actually all the time try to fathom or try to understand the unintended consequences of that decision. And normally it is only one-to-one. We want to reduce, that is our nature, our human nature, or you could say our humanly embedded, genetically programmed way of taking decisions, is that when we want to take a decision, we want to reduce it to a problem. And then when we want to reduce it, then we want to take a decision on solving the problem. But the problem is not a result, is normally a result of a series of other things that has happened. And when we take a decision, we do not actually understand what are the consequences of that decision that's going to take place. So when we actually take a decision, we do not understand what are the consequences of that decision going to be. where it is going to hit, how it is going to do. Like, for example, we have taken a decision to use irrigation in our uh, agriculture. But do we know, have we actually been able to understand whether our soil will be actually be able to deal with the excess water that we are trying to provide? What are the results that we will get? Is it going to bring the salt? So therefore, in India, we have a huge problem of soil salination in large parts of Punjab and other places where irrigation has been most consistent and very widely done. So coming back to the points is that at the same time, things are connected in so many ways that we cannot understand what we are trying to do. We think that water is a problem. So if we just supply water to the plants or to the soil, and we can increase our productivity and farmers will all become rich. Like, for example, today, they are saying that if we can have roads to every village, then farmers will become very rich. So these are, but what are the consequences of each decision that has not been, we have not been able to study it, neither are we studying it, neither are we looking at it, nor are we evaluating it or monitoring it. So at the most, we may take a few linkages with us, but life in itself is very complex. So many things work at the same time. And when we do take a decision without understanding all these complexities or trying to deal with it or trying to monitor all the complexities, then we have unintended consequences. And what are the kind of unintended consequences that are there? Let us take a look at the next slide. You see, we have used a reductionistic approach to life and to everything that we're doing around us. And we've seen that, okay, the society needs transport. So we have worked tremendously on transport. We have done unbelievable advancement and great technological advancement and great feats in the area of transport. We can travel anywhere in the world within minutes. Within hours, we can reach any part of the world. But what is the consequences of that? That we are still counting. We're still wondering what are the consequences of this huge effort for transport. Similarly, we always, human beings for their own defense and defense from others have worked on weapons. And we've made great advancement in weapons. And everyone is, thinks it is a very great advancement in weapons, but there are unintended consequences of this weaponry. In fact, the major portion of most countries are spent on weapons today. Space exploration, for that matter, computer technology. I mean, we are just we are the edge or the cutting edge of this technology, where we're able to speak to people all over the world using this technology. We're just giving a list of all this, and each place we have great success. In the last 10 years, we can see what computer technology and digital technology has done to the world. Similarly, we can talk about robotics, we can talk about building and building science, we talk about home appliances, energy, medical technology, genetic engineering, chemical technology, and so many other things that we have. Each one of them is doing just better and better and better. And this is simply a success of the human mind and human nature. But these are not complex things. When we're dealing with the transport system, we're just dealing with the fuel, the system of fuel injections and how to run. We've done it pretty much very well. But when we are moving to non-mechanical things that we need, needs management, which involves things like agriculture, forestry, air quality. What do you think? Are we getting better in agriculture? Are we doing better with our forests and forest reserves? Are we doing better with the diversity that we have? How many of us think, or any of us are thinking that are getting better with the water supplies and the water quality that we need on a every yearly basis? Similarly, with wildlife and biodiversity, the diversity is there, the erosion that is going on. And then, of course, we are in the middle of a huge pandemic right now. And do you think, are we doing better with the health? No, because human beings have not been able to understand the complexity that nature is. Even though they have developed successes while dealing with non-mechanical things, which can be which are dealt in a really reductionistic way. But when we have to deal with a complex thing in a holistic way, we are seeing consistent failures. So now let's go to an example for this in the next slide. This is a verse from the Chandogya Upanishad, which says, Ahara Shuddho Sattva Suddhihi, Sattva Suddho Dhruva Smritihi, Smriti Lambhe Sarva Granthinam Vipramokshat. This says, Ahara Shuddho, if your ahara or food, or practically ahara could mean anything that is an intake for us. So ahara shuddho, if food is pure, then sattva suddhi, our memory or thinking capacity or our existence becomes pure. If our existence becomes pure, then sattva suddho dhruva smritihi, our memory becomes very sharp. Smriti becomes dhruva, very perfect becomes. Then it says, Smriti lambhe sarva granthinam vipramokshat. And when one's memory is very good, then he can understand the methods of how to get out of this entanglement and the complexity and the entanglement of this material world. So the point that this Chandogya Upanishad verse is mentioning is that food is connected to your existence, the way you think, to your memory, your abilities to deal with this world, and then how to handle the problems of this world. Okay. So in the next slide, if we take it in a reverse order, in the next slide, it is given, we're taking it in a different way. So therefore, if food is a substandard, then what will be the result of that? So if the food is substandard, then our ability to think, our memory, our existence will become substandard. And eventually, the society and its spirituality, everything will become very substandard. So this is the indications that we see that everything is connected. We are thinking that, oh, nutrition is only got to do with health. Memory and other things are not connected. Our existence, our ability to think, our ability to deal with problems are not there. No, they are all connected. This is what our ancestors understood it. But somehow down the line, we've missed the track, and we've landed up creating a society where most of the things that we deal with, most of the things that we manage or try to manage, are getting worse and worse and worse. Human relationships, economies, you can see everywhere it is failing. I was just the other day hearing from some sources about how the population of countries like Estonia and other countries is dwindling, and it is becoming a case of great concern for a lot of people. Even though India is at a place when we have a boom in the population with 139 million people in the country. Um, People are already predicting a population bust as a result of and consequences of what we are doing today. So let's come to the next slide. Another thing that we would like to deal with, this is taken from Top and al. Their scientific paper in 1995. This is again, I'm just trying to give you an understanding of how complex nature is. This is a practical thing that we are trying to explain because we are going to talk about soil. How soil is actually, how we deal with soil is resulting in what today? Because we are not understanding that without connecting the soil to our lives, we're creating havoc all over the world. Let's go to this thing. First and foremost, intensive agriculture or intensive tillage, intensive agriculture, which includes very heavy tillage of the land, that means plowing of the land, results in erosion. And of course, second thing that we have done with this intensive agriculture, that we do not add sufficient of the residues that we cultivate. For example, we cultivate rice and we take the grains, but the straw that remains, we take that off also. And if something is remaining, we want to burn it also. So when all this is happening, what is the obvious result of that? The obvious result of that is that organic matter decreases in the soil. And when organic matter decreases in the soil, the aggregates start breaking down of the soil. Aggregates means the spaces and the space and the air going, the tilt of the land. The land starts becoming more and more compact because there is less of organic matter. So the particles or the skeleton of the soil, which are the particles of clay, aluminium, zinc, and silica, and broken things of rocks, etc., all the debris that are there, these are the skeletal matter of the soil. Now this starts going away because of the organic matter going away from the soil. When the organic matter goes away from the soil, so what remains is only the skeletal matter, which becomes compacted. There is nothing to give these particles apart and allow space for them to go in, for air to go into it, or for water to go into it. So it becomes aggregated. This is called the aggregate, breaks down. So when the organic matter decreases in the soil, the aggregate breaks down of the soil. That means the soil becomes compacted. So when it becomes compacted, and now so the organic matter acts as an armor to the soil. It protects the soil from going away. So there is increased erosion by air and water. And then the surface becomes more and more compacted and crusted. It becomes hard. It does not penetrate. It's very difficult to penetrate. It's very difficult for the water or the air to penetrate into the soil. So this is what is a result of the industrial or the green revolution that we have done with the soil. We have replaced organic matter, which was required in the soil, with inorganic fertilizers. And as we did that, the organic matter removed from the soil landed up in creating aggregates. I'm breaking down the aggregates, increasing compaction of the soil, crusting of the soil, and further suffocating the soil and removing all the flesh and all the aeration. The lungs of the soil are gone. Okay, so this is what is happening stage by stage. As again and again the things keeps happening, again and again this keeps going on. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, we see now as organic matter is more and more, less and less organic matter is being put in the soil. We all know that in India and China especially, agriculture was going on for at least centuries, if not millennia, at least 4,000 years, without any reduction in. This has been documented by Sir Albert Howard in his book uh, called An Agricultural Testament, where he says for thousands of years, these same lands were producing the same amount of food, was able to produce very good quality food and same amount of food for years and years without any degradation because of the addition of organic matter that was there. But as these practices were replaced with inorganic fertilizers, heavy tillage, mind you, the farmers of India did not use iron plows. This is an unintended consequence of using iron plows, that we started plowing deeper and deeper and deeper and exposing more and more organic matter to the sun and the forces of nature. And then these become, these again get burnt out and get degraded chemically and also by the effect of the sun to become again going into becoming carbon dioxide. So more organic matter is lost, less storage of water, because for every percentage of organic matter that is there in the soil, it stores 100 times its weight in water or water in it. As as 1% organic matter is there, then 100 times its weight, it can store water in it. So as organic matter has left the soil, left our agriculture, we are getting more and more crusted and compacted soil. And thus there is less and less water in our soil. So the same lands which are producing abundance of food today are drought prone, arid, semi-arid, incapable of supporting life and livelihoods. This is the situation today. And next point is that this also, with the moving away of organic or removal of organic matter or not organic matter being lost from the soil, the living entities, other living entities which were living in the soil and making the soil aggregate, means the tilth of the soil was getting very nice. It was being moved because tilth of the soil means the sponginess of the soil. This was removed. And there was no circulation of the organic matter and broken down to nutrients and provided at different stages to different plants at different times. So this removed the microorganisms in the soil, the plants in the soil, the other macro and microorganisms and soil organisms that are there, and thus less and less nutrients are now available for our plants. So therefore, today, our food has less and less nutrients in the soil. Then the next step that takes place is crop yields reduce. And the same lands today, Dharampal has documented that in the same lands of South India, where today we hardly are able to get 700, 800 or maximum a ton of rice. Before the 17th, before the 18th century, before the French, the British and the Dutch army was rolling over the country, our production of rice was almost 4 to 8 tons per acre. This is all documented by the different kings who collected taxes, and this is also you can see it in the book of Dharampal. So coming back to the point is the crop yields are reducing and reducing. Even the ICAR is saying that India, the production of food is decelerating at 2% annually. So what is the result of that? The result of it, we will show later on also. What are the results of this? But the primary result that we are now going to talk about, immediate result, is the hunger and the malnutrition that results. lack of nutrition. What is the effect of lack of nutrition? Lack of immunity, lack of growth, stunted growth, different kinds of diseases. We're going to be ravaged by again and again by more and more diseases as the nutritional capacity keeps on going down and down and down of the soil, of the food that we're eating, of the soil that is, of the crops that are growing on the soil. So this is a result, going back to the point again, this is a result of one thing that we have started doing, intensive agriculture. Slowly intensive agriculture, erosion, insufficient residues added, organic matter decreasing, aggregates breaking down, results finally in hunger and malnutrition. In a country that never had, this is all documented facts, which said that Dharampal has documented these facts. You can read it in his book, in a series of books that he has written, five books that has been there. We have seen that there was no question of hunger in in India. There were so many Anna-kshetrams that there was no need for anyone to beg food. So therefore, hunger has come. There was never such situation before. There was always enough food for everyone in this country. Today we are hunger there are people, I think how many, 8 million people or more than 80 million people in India are below poverty line, who hold these BPL cards and this and that, and they don't have enough to eat. We are having to supply them food. When nutrition goes down, nutrition and the hidden hunger is not just in the poor people who are not getting enough to eat, but it is also in the urban people who seemingly are eating a lot of food but have not been able to get enough nutrition because the food is less. So going to the next slide. Can you go to the slide before this? So what is the result of this? Yeah, as a result of the soil, the organic matter leaving the soil getting compacted, and because of lack of availability of water and the soil drying up faster, we have decided to exploit groundwater. And as a result of lack of water going into the soil, plus our depletion of groundwater, 90% of the groundwater of our country is depleted. In India, at least, it is depleted, and even throughout the world. We are losing, in India, we are losing 10 to 15 tons of soil for every ton of food that we are producing. But to produce food at the same quantity that we are producing today, organically, we need at least 20 tons of compost per acre. And is it going there? It is practically impossible. Okay, so now agriculture, again, if it is developed based on irrigation, it is doomed the day it is started. So agriculture cannot develop on the basis of irrigation. It has to be developed on the basis of good soil and good practices. And so, as a result of all these things, as it was said before, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Now we're eating so many apples today. Today, so much apple is available. But is it keeping the doctor away? No, because there is no nutrition. Yeah. Today they say the nutrition that was available in an apple 50 years ago, today we have only 1/5 of that in an apple. So what has happened, so next slide, is that the biology has failed. So what has happened is that the biology has completely failed. And why has it failed? Because the leadership has failed to understand the need for, the reason for this. We are trying to revive the rural economy today all over the world, And the emphasis today is on building roads and infrastructure, building cold storages. But what has failed is not that the villages lack roads or it lacks the storages. Yes, they are definitely helpful, could be helpful. But what has actually failed, but despite of that, we are unable to stop the failure of our whole agriculture and the food production that is going on. And as a result of that, as we went before, we have seen before, what we have seen in the previous case is that ahara shuddho sattva suddhe dhruva smritihi. So if ahara is failing, then spirituality fails. When spirituality fails, society fails. Because spirituality understands the subtlety of human nature, how to deal, how to think, how to feel. All these things fail. Ahara shuddho sattva suddhe. Sattva means the ability to do all these things. So human relationships fail. So next slide. So what has happened today as a result of the failure in understanding the soil and understanding the consequences of each decision that was taken, each decision that we have taken in the last few years using different kinds of fertilizers, plowing the land, getting more and trying to sell or make money from our land, all these things that we're doing, getting roads to our land, getting irrigation to our lands. What is the result of it? In the last 70 years, about 40% of the arable land in the whole world has been abandoned. The land that was cultivated or cultivable has been abandoned in the last 70 years. And as a result of that, what is happening? We are going to the forest, opening up new forest lands and trying to do more agriculture there, intensified agriculture again, and less land is being available. The previous land is degraded. The newer land has been again going to degradation. And this is our activity. We are moving to a desert. The whole world is moving towards desertification. And what is in agriculture production today, where is most of the money going to? Going into external inputs for irrigation, for fertilizers, for machinery, for harvesting. It is hardly anything is going into the land to bring in the organic matter, and from matter everything else that will come. Let's go to another statistics here in the next slide. India is relatively a small country, but you will be surprised to see here that India has the maximum amount of arable land in the world. It is much smaller than the United States and Russia, of course, and even China, but it has got the maximum amount of arable land. But because of the practices, then why are we poor? Why do we have such a huge population of poor people? And why is it also, another reason why most people must be wondering, why is India has such huge population? Because it has got the maximum amount of arable land in the world. So, but as we said, 40% of our land is getting, we are abandoning it. So this is what is happening today. If you travel across any country, you will see large parts of land which are wasted or urbanized or done something like that, because of which we are not producing enough food. So this is a consequence of all the decisions that we are taking. Now, let us come to the next point. These points, the point that I'm coming, next slide, please. In the next slide, we are trying to, what we're going to deal with in the next, throughout this whole seminar is to talk to you about these 4 things that hold the center of gravity of any ecosystem. Any ecosystem, the balance of any ecosystem, or anything that we do has to be again and again seen whether these 4 systems are running properly or not. First, the energy flow. This whole world actually is living off the sun's energy? And are we increasing through our whatever decisions we are taking the sun's energy flow? Are we increasing the diversity of the flora and the fauna? Because diversity of flora and fauna are very important. I'll just show you why. Next is the nutrient cycle, which is also, I'm just going to show you why. And the hydrological cycle, nutrient cycle, of course, everyone knows how nutrients, all the nutrients have to be cycled. We cannot have anyone store up nutrients in any place. And nutrients is something that is going to be current. Anything stored up will cause a problem in the next stage. And the hydrological cycle or the water cycle, each one of them will be dealt with. We have speakers for each one of them. We'll just see the next slide. What we are talking here is trying to make you understand the nature of any decision has to be connected with one another. Can we go to the next slide? These four things will have to be dealt with and will be dealt with. But when you're seeing it all, you have to see that they're all connected. So let us now understand why this is all going to take place, why these are all connected. Everyone likes growth. Everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to grow nice crops. Everyone wants to grow their families. Everyone wants to grow their careers. Everyone wants to do that. But to do anything, if you want to grow, life is a cycle. And life is a cycle. It has to have death. Growth is always fueled and followed by death and decay. It is that the death and the decay actually fuel the growth. If we want to have unlimited growth, but do not balance from the other phases of life, the death and the decay. Even in human society, if the old people or the what do you call, we all love to see young children born, and we all celebrate it. But that growth will have to be balanced with the death, the old age and the death of our old people. If they are not taken care of, the new will never do well. In our crops, we all love to have beautiful growth, but the soil has to also have the death and the decay. Then only will the growth come. So this whole, what we're trying to make you understand here is that life as a whole has to be understood, not in parts and parcels. We are having this whole pandemic, and not just one pandemic. We have had more and more pandemics every year. There are pandemics going on again and again. This is the results are very short term. Therefore, we are taken aback. But we have a cardiac pandemic going on. There's diabetes going on everywhere. We have AIDS pandemic going on everywhere. I mean, we have Ebola, we have Zika, we'll have more and more and more. Why? Because everyone was wanting to fuel growth, but growth cannot take place without death and decay. The toll has to come. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is just moving from one phase to another phase. We all love the growth, but how can you, it cannot take place without the balanced input from the other phases of life. And for that, in this cycle of life, there is a role of animals. We want to now replace everything in agriculture without animals. We want to have machinery. Can we go to the next slide? In the next slide, we are seeing that our lives and our soils, and the soils, we depend for everything of our sarva kama dukha mahi. Anything that we want to do in our lives is coming from our soils. And our soils need the impact of the animals, their hoof impact, their grazing. All this you will see in the next few days, next few weeks, that this whole thing, how this takes place. We are just giving you an overview of all this so that you remember, please, that they are all connected. Animal life is connected on the health of the soil. The health of the soil is connected on the health of the animals. The health of the animals and the soil is dependent on the health of the plants and and what is growing annually, what is dying annually. It is dependent on the sunshine. So many, all the factors are dependent. It's dependent on the air. Everything is dependent on one another. What the animal does and we do affects the soil. It affects the air. It affects the animals. It affects the plant systems. It affects our immune system. It affects our health system. Everything is connected. Okay, so this is what you'll see. Next slide. If it is another thing to actually study it in a laboratory under controlled conditions, when we control those conditions and then we try to do those activities. But when we actually put it in with nature, when the sunshine, the air, the humidity, the variation in rainfall takes place, all that. So that is what we say in situ and in vivo. The next slide, please. So in situ, in vivo, all these things take place. There is a difference between the two. What we study in the laboratory and what we actually get as results in real life are very different. Can I get the next slide, please? Yeah, the next after that. So coming back to the issue of holistic understanding, we have to also have a holistic understanding of wealth. Today, we have had a very reductionistic attitude towards wealth. We are thinking that pieces of paper is wealth, or we're thinking some numbers in our bank accounts is wealth, or luxuries are basically, high-end soaps, high-end clothes, designer clothes, laptops, homes, all these things which we think are very good things. But Chanakya in his Chanakya Niti says, you see what he's calling as wealth. He's saying, Prithivim tu trini ratnani. On this earth, there are only three ratnas, or three jewels on this earth. Prithivim tu trini ratnani, jalam, annam, subhashitam. Jalam means water, annam means food, and subhashitam, good words, how to speak. How does one speak? This is what is actually wealth on this earth. And he says, Mudhe pashanu khandeshu. There are fools who think that some pashan, some stone, some lifeless stone is actually wealth. Ratna samya vidiyate. So real wealth is not pieces of paper, luxuries, soaps, etc. But it is the water. How much water can your soil have? We are heading towards a massive crisis of water. And the largest holder of water is the soil. And it is not that water is reducing in the world, the total content, it is the same. It is the water holding capacity of the land is reduced. And therefore, it is causing poverty. It is causing desertification. It is causing the immigration or migration of the villagers to the cities. This is causing the crowding of the cities. It is causing the population shift. It is causing, and when a population shift is taking place, there is struggle for existence. There is struggle for livelihood, struggle for jobs. When there is struggle for jobs, there is fighting. When people are being displaced from their families, their homes are being displaced, then who are the ones which are most affected? That is the children and the women are the most affected people. And therefore, there is abuse of women and children going on. So all this is a part of what is happening to the soil. It is what is happening to our surroundings. Okay, the next slide. So really, what is wealth? Without it, our families will become autistic. You know what does autistic mean? The autistics are children who cannot take any stress, who are unable to take any form of stress, such as they cannot take to critical understanding. They are, what do you call it? You can check out the whole thing of medically what autistic will come. So when the soil and the biodiversity that actually give us the multiplicity of nutrients, they say that we need to eat about at least 32 different varieties of food per week if you want to stay healthy and and not get sick. And all the nutrient requirements have to be taken care of. So, can we go to the next slide, please? So, when we do not have that, then this is what we have with our families. There's stunted growth, we get mentally ill, we get infertile people. The predictions are that by 2070 that 70% of the world will be infertile. People will have low intelligence. All this is a result of not understanding, what that one decision to use iron plows on the land has done to us, how the tillage of the land has done to all this, and then removing all the organic matter that had to go into the soil, resulting in the compaction of the soil, compaction of the whole, then less of water in the soil, less of air in the soil, less of silt in the soil, less of lack of diversity in the soil, lack of nutrients available in the soil. And then as a result of this, this is what we're getting with the families. Okay, shall we go to the next slide? And what are the luxuries of a very rich soil? These are luxuries today. Who can afford to wear silk? Where can we get sandalwood? We can't. Agaru, it's practically impossible for us to get scented sandalwood or agaru. Teak, we don't have teak. We are using, some kind of metal and trying to. Teak lasts much longer than metal in terms of when you build in houses, when you build ships, etc. Teak lasts much longer than that. This is when there's plenty of nutrients in your food, when there's plenty of water. And when you have all of these, you have plenty of free time to pursue arts, music, literature, etc. And of course, it gives you a long, happy life to pursue many more things. Yeah, next slide. So, food is not that which fills the belly. It is food that heals. It is food that expands your mental and spiritual abilities. It is the food that is able to expand your creativity. It's your ability to understand philosophy. It gives you immunity. It expands your love rather than selfishness. And the next slide. Loving the environment or loving giving someone a gift is not just what a loving gift. It's not just costly gifts, it's not just kisses, embraces, and caressing. It's to give each other a loving environment. This is what we want to give to our next generation, to the loved ones that we have. Love is healing. Love is to enrich one another's life. Love is to search for immortality. And love is to give stress-free life. That is how a loving environment can give to us. Love can give us all these things. And if you're not able to give, if you're giving your children a stressful life, if they're going to school and college and giving them stress, this is no love there. Next slide, please. Stress produces stress. Last slide. Slide number 24. 24th, one last slide. This is the last thing that I would like to say in a minute. Well, when food is produced by stress, that means the plant that is growing does not get all its requirements that it needs. It does not have enough water. It does not have enough nutrients. So when that happens, the plant is actually producing stress. It is growing under stress. It is not growing naturally. It is growing under stress. It is growing more fiber. It is if just like a human being, when it is under stress, it produces adrenaline and other things like that. In the same way, when a plant is put under stress, it also reacts to that stress. And when it reacts to that stress, the food that it produces is also of stress. It is not the real food. And when you eat that food, you are also stressed because that food is not the real food. It is produced under stress. So when each action is that, so therefore the food that is produced is out of stress. So therefore we are stressed out when we eat that food and we behave in a stressed out way because that is not really a healthy, nutritious, loving food. When food is produced with a loving manner, it has a different, when the plant is not stressed out, it produces food which is natural, healthy, and loving also. So this is the result of a non-holistic approach to our whole environment and the way we live. I'm giving you an example of food and soil, but this happens everywhere. Everything is connected. When there is stress, the stress goes to the air, it goes to the water, it goes to the environment, it goes to the animals. Everyone is stressed out. We are stressed out as a result. Just like today, because of this pandemic, we're all stressed out. Whether we have the disease or not, we are all stressed out. Okay, we will end here for now. I hand over the proceedings to our host, Vasudham. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your enlightening talk. And now I would like to request the participants, if they have any doubts, they can actually ask the doubts online. And we currently, like, we will accept only 5 doubts now. And remaining doubts, if anyone have, then they can write an email to an email ID. We will share to which email ID your questions can be posted. So they can raise their hands to ask any doubts.
Hare Krishna, Madhava Das Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, may I know your name and
Yeah,
from
my
where you
name
are
is
talking?
my name is Karunakar. I am from a town called Warangal in Telangana state.
Okay, yeah, you can please go ahead. You can ask question with Madhav Prabhu. Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji, in your speech you told that we are not supposed to use the iron plows or mechanical plow, so, which is actually spoiling the soil.
Yes.
So, but that what about the labor? Because we practically we face a lot of labor issues. If we use to overcome that, we use tractors, we use some tools, mechanization tools. So, how to solve that problem of labor?
So I think these issues will be dealt with as we go further in this course, but I will just give you a very brief reply. If we want to deal with the whole thing, why do you have to plow your land? My question is, because you are already in the field, you can. What is the need for you to plow the land?
That we do not know, because traditionally everybody is doing that, so we are also doing it.
Yeah, because we want the tilt. Basically, we want the tilt. We want that the
yes,
soil should be what do you call it? Aerated. It should be loose for the roots to penetrate, to go down, right?
Yeah.
And so that there is what do you call movement of air. There will be the water will be retained in the soil.
Yes.
But the point is that we have not realized that by using the plow the way we are trying to do it today, and not enough residues and not enough organic matter in the soil, what we have, and then going deeper and deeper into the soil, as you expose more and more of your soil to the sun, the hot sun, What in Warangal, I've been to Warangal, I think in a summer like today, your temperatures are above 40
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Warangal. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but what do you think is the temperature on the soil level in the midday?
Yeah, it's much higher. In the top
It
side,
should be above 60 to 70 degrees centigrade
yeah,
if you measure it. Imagine day after day for 8 to 9 months in a year, your soil and your organic matter is being exposed to 70 to 60 to 70 degrees temperature. It's frying your organic matter. You see, the point is that organic matter is actually will naturally do the work that you are trying to do with the mechanical plow. It is going to improve the tilth of your soil. It's going to make the land spongy. It is going to actually allow air and water to penetrate into the soil. But instead of doing that, what we have done is that we have removed the organic matter from the soil, exposing it more and more into the sun. And as a result of that, we are having to work more and more. We need more and more labor to produce the same food.
yeah,
So if the opposite is done, you will see that you will need less and less of plowing. You need less and less of this kind of activity. All you need is maybe just a little disturbance in the soil to put the seed in. In fact, you can study also, there is a whole movement in the world for zero tillage also. There are a lot of people who are seeing and working on zero tillage or practically no tillage, or they're just kind of only plowing just enough to put the seed in. And you will
I
realize
think some
also that,
Japanese technique.
sorry?
I think that's a Japanese technique. I don't remember the scientist
Oh
now
no,
who
it's
used.
going on all over the world. You can check that out. But anyway, we can talk about it far more in another occasion. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you increase your organic matter in your soil, the same things that we are the tilth, the sponginess in your soil, the ability for the soil to absorb more water, all this will naturally increase, and the nutrient capacity in your soil will increase. All this naturally happens when we actually increase organic matter in the soil. And that is where our concentration should be. Our labor, if you are using labor or having to use labor, instead of using labor to plow more and more or using machinery, you have to see. See, another thing that we are doing is that we are only cultivating for ourselves and our profits. What about the soil? We need food to eat, but doesn't the soil need food also to produce food? So we should also grow for the soil. So there is now you see the soil needs 1 to 6% at least. The soil can have 1 to 6% organic matter in the soil. So organic matter has to come into the soil. As you remove organic matter, you will need more and more plowing in the soil. So these are all interconnected. They're all connected. And your soil dries up faster when you do not have organic matter in the soil. Therefore, you need more irrigation. Okay. So this goes on and on and on. You can experiment by taking a small piece of property, and as I said already, per acre you need at least 20 tons of organic matter. Then you will get the same kind of production, and your soil will become richer. So if we do not move to making the soil rich with organic matter, and rather use inorganic matter, which actually burns up the soil and utilizes all that thing very faster, much faster off, we'll end up becoming more and more labor intensive, more and more input intensive, and we need more irrigation. Our lands need more plowing. It becomes more compacted, and as it goes on, growing becomes more and more and more difficult every year. Okay.
Yeah, understood, Prabhuji. Thank you. And the bottom line is like if we increase more organic matter, so plowing is not at all required.
Very little, very little. I mean, just to put in the seed.
Okay. Thank
Just
you.
to put in the seed. There are different ways of bringing organic matter in the soil. There are different techniques. There are a lot of people doing it in different ways. Some people are putting back their agricultural residues. Some people are growing on it, cover crops. Some people are doing other things like that. Some people are into zero tillage. A lot of techniques are there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, Ravi Prabhu, yes, you can, he has raised his hand. You can unmute and you can ask the question.
Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
This is Ravi Kulu as Raghunandan Das. So thank you for a very nice presentation, Prabhu. So my two questions are like, can we get these PPTs, what you shared?
Oh yes, it
first?
is already with the host. He can
Okay.
he can take it from him.
And also my other question is like, whatever methods you are suggesting, can we see them practiced already, or is it only theoretical we will be able to?
No, everything is, whatever we are speaking is actually what people are doing around us. Successful farmers already doing that.
So during the course of this 6 weeks, 3 weeks or 6 sessions, we will be able to see the results of these methods being practiced.
I think we will have people who are actually doing it in Jaipur. They will tell you. They will be speaking to you.
Okay.
How in Jaipur is is a very dry area land, very less thing. And today, what is the results that they are getting? You will see that the increasing of organic matter in the soil using cows and animals, animal impact in the soil. They will tell you how productivity is changing, how the soil structure is changing, how the growth is changing on the land. With only about 300 or 400 millimeters of rainfall.
Okay.
So yeah, things are, you will get to hear from them.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much.
Namaste ji. Pavitra from India. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah. In the first place, I thank you for your nice presentation, and in a simple way, you have covered every aspect of nature, that common sense approach and holistic approach. Yeah, these are the two major basic things the human being have to understand to live as part of nature, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Where is the missing link? Because our ancestors have practiced many things which you had mentioned in the slides. Yeah.
Yes.
If we go to 30 or 40 years back, our ancestors were following this holistic approach and common sense approach. They have that wisdom
to
live as part of nature. Where we had missed that link, because we have gone deep in research field, in scientific innovations, despite of these, where we have missed that link.
Well, where we missed is when our education and our whole approach became reductionistic rather than holistic. That is when everything went away. It has not just happened in one day. It has happened over the years. Even probably they took some unholistic and reductionistic approaches, and that subsequently slowly snowballed into what we have today. Huge desertified lands, depletion of groundwater, eroding lands. So all this is a result of years and years of generations of they introduced maybe a little piece of iron into their plow, and previously all plows were made of wood, and then they introduced a little piece of iron, and someone introduced a larger piece of iron, and like that it goes on, and it goes on magnifying the problems again and again and again. And when we don't think about in a holistic manner, in fact, when we also, another thing that has taken us away is our traditional lifestyles were more or less based on some religious practices, mostly. When we moved away from those practices, the spirituality, etc., and we kind of became more and more secular, We also lost that holistic wisdom that was handed over to us for thousands of years, that was there. As we moved away from that, we lost touch with that thousands of years of traditional wisdom that was coming to us. And we started kind of thinking that it is very outdated, and we need to be more modern to our understanding. And we did get some for a few decades, at least only for about 2 or 3 decades. We saw some short-term gains, but then the after effects, aftermaths, we are seeing now. Okay, I hope that makes some sense to you.
Yeah, really,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
in our history, all the discoveries were applauded, right?
Yes.
Invention of mechanical elements are applauded more.
Yeah, but we didn't. We forgot about the thousands of years of inventions that were actually handed down to us with very critical studies and all that. We only thought our generation did it.
Yeah, yeah, Ji, I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. And then one more last question can be from Mahibal Govindadas Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, you can unmute and you can ask the question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's Mahipal Govind Das.
Yes.
I'm based out of Mumbai,
Okay.
but I have my village in Bihar.
Mhm.
So my question is that learning holistic farming, organic farming, sitting in the city is fine, but how much possible it is for a person living in a city to get this implemented in his native place? Because in my case, most of the time I spend living in Mumbai because I'm working, I'm doing all my job in Mumbai, and I have land which is being cultivated through the modern approach in my village in Bihar. So, and I don't get much time. I visit once in 2 to 3 years at that place. So how can this be implemented at a practical level, if you can say something about it?
I do not know how we can implement it, but I've known people who even after retirement have gone in and have developed very successful farms. Some of them have also realized and understood the importance of farms, and they have encouraged their children to take it over and supported them. You can also support the people who are there by actually providing them proper training, proper understanding, or moving towards at least an experimentally some small portion of the land and seeing its difference, because it takes a few years for the land to, again build up the organic matter in the soil, again get back life in the soil. It's a hurt and a disease, and what do you call it? It needs rehabilitation. Just like when you go through a accident, you're rehabilitated. When you go through a burn case, someone goes through a burn case, then he's rehabilitated. It needs grafting and so many things. So it's almost like that with the soil too. So you all, especially people like you who are educated and have an understanding of all these things, will have to take a step. And we have to understand that if we don't do it, our next generation are actually going to be in a worse situation. You may be earning, handsomely in Bombay and be able to maintain it, but we doubt if what is, you know very well what is going on in Bombay, and a little more of these pandemics in different ways, either it is through heart problem or some other disease that's going to come. They're all bound to happen. More and more of these diseases are going to bound to happen. I mean, it's now common that people should have diabetes and heart problems by the time they're 40 plus. So do you want this to happen to your children? And would you like them to also stay in the same city and to do that? Or would you like to encourage them to actually go back and settle to a much more healthier life, eat more healthy food, and create a much more healthier retirement plan for you? So these are options that you can work on and see what you can do for the future. I hope it makes some sense to you. And this is what I was saying in Bombay, that I decided to move out, and I've 20 years I've been working in farms. I was a city boy. You're lucky you grew up in a farm. I mean, you're from a village. I was a city boy, but seeing the terrible things that happen in Bombay, I decided to move out.
So basically, it is like you have to spend a certain amount of time there, leaving your things in the city.
Yeah, or yes, or you have to encourage someone, or you have to give your money or energy to educate people who are on the land, who will be able to willing to take that education and re-education. I mean, to move to a more natural way of it and a holistic way of agriculture and living.
Okay. Thank you, Brahma.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Okay. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Thank you very much for all participants. And if any further, like if any questions would like to ask with any of our speakers, they can actually write to us. One minute. You can actually write to us at here help@dirttosoil.org. This is an email ID, and you please address the speaker in the subject or in the email, because this email ID is going to handle by the multiple speakers, and related to the topic, they will reply with the answers. So if any questions related to this course or for any other information, you can write to us the same old email ID, that is holistic.cowcare@gmail.com. So this is all for today, and we will come back again tomorrow. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare